So you hear it all the time, right? The Fed, the Bank of England, central banks all over the world, they're always talking about their 2% inflation target. But if you ever stop to ask, why 2? Why not 0? Why not 5? It's this number that basically steers the entire global economy, but where in the world did it come from? Well, the answer is a lot weirder and way more recent than you probably think.
I mean, it's a totally fair question. If the whole point is price stability, then wouldn't zero inflation be, well, perfect stability? No price increases at all. You could even argue for falling prices, right? So your money could buy you more stuff over time. It just seems like common sense. But as we're about to find out, the world of economics has a, well, very different view on what stable really means.
And what's kind of wild is just how new this whole idea is. Inflation targeting isn't some ancient economic principle carved in stone. Nope. It all started less than 40 years ago, down in New Zealand. The US Fed, they didn't even go public with their 2% target until 2012. This policy that affects literally billions of us, it's basically a millennial.
All right, so let's get into the origin story. You'd probably guess this number was the result of, decades of complex economic modeling and intense research by Nobel laureates. Turns out, that's not what happened. Not even close. The truth is a lot more random. So, let's picture it. It's the late 1980s. The world, including New Zealand, is getting hammered by super high, double-digit inflation. It was a huge problem. So they decide to try something radical. Pass a new law to give their central bank one single job. Get inflation under control by setting a clear target. And this is where it all happens. The foundation for this world-changing policy wasn't some stuffy academic paper. It came from a casual, off-the-cuff remark. A year before the law was even passed, New Zealand's finance minister was on TV and just kind of threw that number out there, 0 to 1%. And that's pretty much it. That's the whole story. The government officials took his 0 to 1% idea, figured they should add a little bit of flexibility, some wiggle room, and just rounded the top end up to 2. So yeah, the number that now dictates global monetary policy was basically improvised for a TV soundbite. It was pulled right out of thin air.
Okay, so if the number was just a fluke, a historical accident, why on earth did it stick? Why did basically every other developed country jump on board? Well, after the fact, economists came up with some really powerful justifications for why a small positive inflation rate is actually a pretty smart idea. So let's look at how this accident turned into dogma.
So the thinking goes like this. A 2% target does a few really important jobs. First, it anchors what we all expect to happen with prices. It's also low enough that we don't really feel it day to day. Most importantly, it creates a safety buffer against something much scarier, deflation, and it gives central banks the tools they need to fight a recession.
Let's break that last part down, because it's a big one. See, in a world with 2% inflation, interest rates tend to be a little higher than 0. That gives the central bank ammunition. When the economy tanks, their main weapon is to cut interest rates to get people spending again. If you start at 0, you've got nowhere to cut. That policy room is probably the biggest reason economists now defend that 2% target.
Now this next one, it's a little more controversial. Nobody likes getting a pay cut, right? It feels terrible. So when times are tough, companies often just lay people off instead. But with 2% inflation, a company can just freeze your salary. The number on your paycheck stays the same, but its actual buying power goes down. It's a real pay cut in disguise, which can, in theory, help a business avoid having to do layoffs. Remember that safety buffer we mentioned? A buffer against a scarier monster? Well, here it is. The number one reason economists are terrified of 0% inflation is that it's just one bad day away from its evil twin, deflation. Deflation, when prices are actually falling, is seen as the ultimate economic boogeyman.
And here's why it's so scary. Think about it. If you knew the new TV you want would be cheaper next month, you'd wait, wouldn't you? Well, imagine everyone starts doing that for everything. Spending just stops. That means company profits collapse, which leads to layoffs and wage cuts. And with less money in people's pockets, there's even less spending, which forces businesses to cut prices even more, and you're caught in this vicious downward spiral that's incredibly hard to escape.
Oh, and there's another nasty little side effect. Your debts, like your mortgage or student loans, are a fixed number of dollars. But in a world with deflation, each one of those dollars becomes more valuable and harder to earn. So the real weight of your debt gets heavier and heavier, and that can absolutely crush families and the entire economy.
But look, this isn't a one-sided story.
targeting inflation even just a little bit has real costs. It's definitely not a free lunch, and there's a strong case to be made against it.
The famous economist Milton Friedman absolutely nailed it with this quote: "Every single year, 2% inflation is quietly eating away at the value of the cash you've saved. It's a slow-motion theft of your purchasing power, and it's a tax that nobody ever got to vote on."
So when you lay it all out, you really see the trade-off. On one side, you've got that buffer against deflation and policy room for the central bank. But on the other, you've got the steady erosion of your savings, the real costs for businesses that have to keep changing their prices, and you can even get pushed into a higher tax bracket just because your nominal income went up to keep pace.
And it's really important to get this straight. Not all deflation is that scary, economy-killing kind. I mean, think about technology. The price of a computer has fallen by, 99.9% in the last 40 years, while its power has gone through the roof. That's good deflation. It's driven by innovation and productivity, not by a catastrophic collapse in demand.
Which brings us to our final big question. If the 2% target was a total accident, and we know it has some real downsides, why are we still so attached to it? Well, the answer has less to do with pure economics and a lot more to do with psychology.
The single most valuable thing a central bank has isn't gold in a vault. It's this word right here, credibility. It's all about trust. It's the belief that they will do what they say they will do. That trust is the glue that holds the entire system together.
And that's the trap they're in. After decades of drilling it into everyone's head that 2% is the magic number, the definition of price stability, what happens if they suddenly say, you know what, just kidding, the new number is 3%? It could shatter that credibility, unleash all sorts of chaotic expectations, and honestly cause way more damage than just sticking with the imperfect target we already have.
So, the bottom line is, we're kind of stuck with it. The 2% target is still here, not because it's some perfect, scientifically proven number, it absolutely isn't, but because the risk of changing it is just seen as being too high. It's a powerful mix of inertia and a deep-seated fear of breaking the system.
Which leaves us with this one last thing to think about. Our entire modern global economy is built around a number that was basically improvised for a TV interview in New Zealand in the 1980s. It was designed for a different world to fight a different economic problem. So as our economy continues to change, with massive debt, aging populations, and crazy fast technology, is this accidental number really the right one to guide us into the future?